Ok, buenas tardes. Vamos a continuar con los diferentes grupos de estudio y ahora continuamos con un simposio que modifica un poco la tonalidad de lo que es el primer curso de revisión PANLAR y nos va a dar unas pautas a futuro sobre un planteamiento que debemos tomar en cuenta y que debemos pensar en que hay que evaluar en nuestros pacientes, y es la discapacidad para el trabajo, la disfuncionabilidad que pueden tener nuestros pacientes no solamente con artritis reumatoide, sino con diferentes enfermedades que nosotros manejamos en nuestro diario de venir. Para este simposio contamos con 3 expositores y finalizará dando unas conclusiones el doctor Carlos Pineda, presidente del PANLAR. El primer expositor es el profesor Esteban Beban. El profesor Esteban Beban no pudo asistir a PANLAR y dará su conferencia vía Skype. Él es director del Centro para la Efectividad de la Fuerza Laboral del World Foundation. Es comentarista experto en el Reino Unido sobre cuestiones laborales en cuanto a disfuncionabilidad laboral. Tiene múltiples investigaciones aplicadas y asesoramientos responsables para las prácticas políticas en el Reino Unido. El profesor Esteban Beban, a continuación vía Skype, tenemos la señal ya. Ok. Profesor Beban, por favor. Can you hear me?
Okay, hello everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Excellent.
Okay.
Well, welcome from the UK. I really regret very much that I can't be with you today. I would very much like to have come to be with you. Unfortunately, logistics just not worked and I have to remain in the UK. However, I'm very pleased that my friend Dr. Alberto Agata is able to be with you today, because we're speaking together in Brasilia only a few weeks ago, and I'm very happy that he'll be able to explain to you some of the work that he's been doing in Brazil. Workability is among people, particularly with musculoskeletal conditions, is important not just clinically, but economically and socially. And what I want to do in the short time I have with you is to describe a major project that we've been conducting at the Work Foundation, which is part of Lancaster University in the UK, called Fit for Work, which has been looking at the impact of musculoskeletal conditions on people's ability to play a full and productive part at work, both in Europe, in Asia Pacific, and in North America. And what I hope to explain to you is will help you understand how the approach and the messages may have resonance in your own work in Latin America. So perhaps we can go to the first slide. The thing to bear in mind is that this is a global initiative, and it started back in 2007, and we've now carried out projects across most continents of the world aside from Africa. What I want to do on the next slide is to give you, so we can go to the next slide. Okay. The one that says Fit for Work. That's the one, thank you. Give you a very brief history of the project, talk to you a little bit about the global burden of musculoskeletal disorders and why this matters, particularly from a work and employment perspective. To talk to you about the impact of musculoskeletal conditions on workability. And then some of the core messages from Fit for Work that we've derived from the over 35 different countries where we've written reports and conducted analysis. and then to finish with some messages about how Fit for Work can be, the research from Fit for Work and the data can be translated into advocacy and action for policymakers, clinicians, and from employers. So if we go to the next slide, I want to tell you a little bit about the brief history of Fit for Work. It first started in the UK in 2007, where we carried out some research to look at the impact of musculoskeletal disorders on sickness, absence, and lost productivity from work. That report had quite a big impact. It was debated in the Houses of Parliament, and it had quite significant impact on policy thinking. On the next slide, you can see that we also extended the work subsequent to that project into most of you. Build coalitions in individual influence clinicians and policymakers in each country. And then since then, we've also extended the work into Asia Pacific, particularly Japan and Korea and Australia and New Zealand. And we've also done work in Canada and just starting new work in the USA. Last month, we launched a new report with Dr. Ogata in Brazil, and he'll tell you a little bit more about that. But we're hoping that the work will extend to other parts of Latin America. If we look at the next slide, many of you will know from the global burden of disease data that musculoskeletal conditions are the second greatest cause of disability in all regions of the world. That's right, that's the right slide. And that disability due to musculoskeletal conditions increased by 45% between 1990 and 2010. So there's a very significant group of conditions that don't just affect the global burden of disease, but also increasingly people of working age. If we go to the next slide, we can also see that musculoskeletal conditions also affect losses of disability-adjusted life years. Indeed, musculoskeletal conditions are fourth on the list of conditions across the world. And yet it's puzzling to us that musculoskeletal conditions are not considered to be a priority non-communicable disease, possibly because they have relatively low mortality, but high morbidity. And so compared with other conditions such as cancer and cardiovascular disease, from the point of view of policymakers, musculoskeletal conditions seem to have less prominence. But we think when you add in the impact of musculoskeletal conditions on work productivity, this should raise their profile amongst clinicians and policymakers. If you look at the next slide, this is data just from the European Union. We can see the burden of musculoskeletal conditions in the working age population. Conditions is attributed to their work. The cost